It's our final story for Men's Mental Health Month, and we're closing with Richard Matheson's The Window of Time. This one's like a memory you can't shake, soft, sad, and sharp all at once. It's about what we hold on to and what slips away, especially when life feels heavy. Grab a virtual coffee, cozy up in Second Life, and let's drift into this haunting tale. Here we go. Let me say at the outset that I don't blame my daughter for what happened. Actually, blame is too critical a word. What I mean to say is that my daughter was hardly responsible for what happened. Miriam's a good soul, benevolent human being. She never, well, almost never, found fault with my living in her home, and Bob's, and the three boys. And if she did find fault, it was such brief duration as to be negligible. Bob, on the other hand, we'll let that go. The main point I want to make is that my daughter did not demean me in any way for my extended residence. She knew I was alone and friendless, all of them deceased, including my beloved wife Agnes. Appreciating that, Miriam treated me with thoughtfulness, kindness, and most importantly, love. So much for the outset. The upshot, I know that my daughter and her family were in a constant state of stress because of me. I did the best I could, using their second bathroom. I didn't have the temerity to utilize the master bathroom as expeditiously as possible, watching television on the small black and white set in my bedroom, rarely watching the 55-inch LCD color TV in their living room, and sharing that only when we all agreed on a specific program. Most of my personal books were in storage and scarcely ever reread. I'd read them all anyway. Oh, there were other elements of stress. Certain foods I couldn't eat, medicine prescriptions I needed periodically, rides to various doctors. I'd lost my driver's license in 2008 following my stroke. Well, why go on? I was, to be brief, in the way. So I decided to leave. I had enough private income from Social Security and my retirement pension from the Writers Guild. I was rather a successful series television writer in the 60s and 70s. So I had had enough income to keep paying Miriam by the month, even though I wasn't there. I didn't tell her I was leaving. I knew she'd try to dissuade me. My age, 82, I'd married late, my health, questionable, my need for company, beyond question. I didn't want to debate with her, so I just left. A parting note on the kitchen table. I didn't take any belongings with me. I could get them after I located a furnished room or flat. I waited until Miriam had gone shopping for groceries. Bob was at work. He's a car salesman, poor chap. The boys, Jeremy, 17, Arthur, 14, and Melvin, 12, were at school. So I decamped from the three-bedroom, two-bath Kelsey domicile. Jeremy would likely be delighted at long last to acquire his own room, and walked over to Church Avenue. Did I mention that their house was in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn? No, I didn't. Well, it is. And I had seen for some time an ad in the local news sheet about a retirement home in that area called Golden Years. Name gave me the pip. Golden Years my foot. But I was in no position, or condition for that matter, to go searching to hell and gone for an appropriate landing spot. The home, I had trouble thinking of it as a home, was a couple of blocks west of Flatbush Avenue. The ad described it so. To be truthful, I can't tell east from west or north from south. I assumed that I was heading in the right direction, and evidently I was. I found the house a block and a half distant from where I'd been in the RKO Kenmore Theater in my youth. Not a bad looking house, cleanly painted, a sign hanging over its porch which read Golden Years, the O missing. No mention of retirement. I had to assume it was the place I was searching for. No doorbell. Instead, a rather pretentious looking knocker made, I guess, of cast iron painted to resemble copper. It made such a deafening resonance when I struck it against the door that it made me wince. An old lady answered the door, which, by the way, if it made a deafening resonance, that actually probably means it's made of copper. An old lady answered the door. I could be wrong on that, though. My immediate assumption was that the house was hers, and she was attempting to keep from losing it by renting out unused bedrooms. She smiled at me. "You come looking for a place," she said. Her assumption would ordinarily have offended me, but her demeanor was so friendly, her voice so agreeable, that I felt nothing but acceptance in her presence. "Yes, I am," I answered her, politely. "Come in, then," she said, still smiling. There was no mention of rental as she led me down the dim-lit hall. Hung on both sides were old, faded photographs and paintings. She must be almost my age, I thought, although I wouldn't have dreamed of asking. Her hair was silvery gray, her clothes outdated, her dark dress ankle length. She walked with a youthful step, however. Reaching a door, she opened it. "Here it is," she said. "Let me know if it's what you need." With that, she was gone. I closed the door behind me and looked around. What I need? An odd expression to use. Fundamentally true, though. I did need some place to hang my cap. I needed to give Miriam a much needed breather from my presence. There were two windows in the room, though through one in front of me I could see Church Avenue, the passing cars, and occasional pedestrians. Nothing special there. I looked around the room. Nothing special there either. The furniture was as elderly as I was, equally so. No private bathroom, of course. All had to have to share. Not a problem. The house was pleasantly quiet except for the motor hum of passing vehicles. The room would do. I moved to the other window. It looked out on a barren lot. To the right was a view of Church Avenue. I looked at it for a few moments, and I felt my spine turn to cold water. I shuddered so violently that I visualized my spine collapsing like a thin tower and splashing out of my body. It was Church Avenue, all right, but not the avenue I was accustomed to. It was unquestionably incredibly different. In brief, I didn't recognize it. It was different. How different, I had no idea. So what did I do? Old fool that I am, I raised the window and, bones creaking, clambered actually, outside and dropped to the ground. The fall gave me spinal pain. Now it was hard bone again. I ignored the pain and moved as quickly as I could to Church Avenue. My God, I remember muttering. I muttered it innumerable times that afternoon. It was different, totally different, appearing as it had when I was young. Young. I shuffled, unable to move distinctly, and looked at my reflection in the nearest store window. No difference there. My reflection was, as usual, that of an 82-year-old man, white-bearded, albeit well-trimmed. Face not too noticeably lined, white cap covering hair-receded skull. Not too bad looking, but still, 82 Church Avenue might have changed. I had not. I looked into the store. It was a butcher shop. There was a sign printed on the window. Esposito Meats. That cold liquid sensation in my spine again. Johnny Esposito, the Y, the gang. Was that the time I'd reached? How old was I? 13, 14? What? My God, I said again. As I mentioned, one of many I muttered that afternoon. No, I was still 82, but what year was I in? If Johnny Esposito were about, were Harry Pierce and Ken Naylor and all the others, good God, could I walk up a few blocks, turn right, and come to the YMCA? Would I see the old gang playing softball in the yard? Hit the porch column and get a double! Jesus, I hadn't thought of that in ages. No, I had to shake my head. It was all too insane. What if I could reach the Y? What if I saw my young self playing in the yard, pitching for the Ravens? Would I stare, walk away, yell to myself, "Hey, strike 'em out, Rich"? Impossible. Put the crazy notion aside. So Church Avenue had changed. There was no reason to believe that the area for miles around had changed too. I was sure it hadn't. Or had it? Now the entire madness of what I was experiencing flooded through me. I had time traveled. I'd written television scripts about that, but now I was actually living it. Or was I dreaming it? Was I at home in Miriam's house, sacked out on my bed, fantasizing about my past? But if that was true, why was I still 82? Why was I experiencing every moment in my brain and body? Only one way to validate. Keep moving. Keep looking. Should I try to find the why? Probably not. I had no proof that this pocket of the past, insane notion, extended blocks beyond where I stood. Not knowing what had caused it in the first place, how could I be sure of its entirety? Better not, I decided. Stay on Church Avenue. Maybe that's all there was. Go the other way. The why, what I might find there, was really immaterial anyway. The gang was a part of my youth, but not so important a part that I had to see it. And God knew I'd rather avoid seeing my young self playing softball. More important things to see, and who knew how long this mad excursion into yesteryear would last. I didn't. So I started, east? Down Church Avenue towards, I believe, Flatbush Avenue. The accuracy of my impulse was verified by the sight of the Kenmore Theater marquee. I was able to see the letters, Little Miss Marker. The sight of it thrilled me. I had seen it one afternoon after Sunday school. My sister treated my mother and me to the show. They were coming from church. How old was I? 12? 13? Possible to recollect, but I was getting close, I thought. Before the show, we had lunch at Bickford's cafeteria, which, thrilled again, I could now see across the way on Flatbush Avenue. I was at its intersection with church. My God! One remembered sight followed another. Now the Flatbush Theater on Church Avenue, just past Flatbush. I could barely make out all the letters on its smaller marquee. Brooklyn, USA. I remember seeing it. The scene in the barber shop, the customer, a gangster, I recalled, getting murdered with an ice pick. Scary stuff to what, a 13-year-old? 14? Just down the avenue was a bar restaurant where real gangsters met and ate and even married. I'd read about it in the newspaper when I was whatever age I was. I still didn't know. It suddenly occurred to me at once, thrilling and frightening, that if I walked further down Church Avenue, I might reach the ancient brick building I knew at PS 81. Was it still there? Why wouldn't it be? Unless this section of the past did not extend that far. That's the part that frightened me. Why was all this happening to me anyway? Should I stop someone and ask? No, that'd be stupid. Everyone I passed obviously belonged in this time. I couldn't prove it, but I'm sure my expression was one of constant awe. No one I passed wore such an expression. They were in their time. I was the day's interloper. I wouldn't try to explore the size of the past world. If PS81 was actually there, I was too unnerved to try reaching it. What if I did reach it? Would I see my young self in one of the classrooms taking instructions? In what? Grammar, arithmetic, geography, for Miss Oltongui? Good God, I remembered her name. That frightened me too. Did it mean I was being absorbed back into this time? I looked at the back of my hands in alarm. Or was it with hope? No, still old. As always, thickly veined and dark blue. I had not lost 82 years. Jesus Christ, what's going on? I wondered in sudden alarmed anger. What was the point of it all? For a moment, but only a moment, I considered rushing back to the window and climbing back through that window. Except, of course, a terrifying except. What if the house wasn't there any longer? What if I was trapped in the past, a lone elderly gent caught in his own childhood? No, that was impossible. There had to be some logic left in the world, some sense to what I was going through. Why reverse time itself if there was no point to it? Why should nature distort itself so bizarrely for no reason? Matheson knows how to tug the heartstrings, doesn't he? His stories got me thinking about regrets we don't say out loud. Have you ever had a moment you wish you could redo? Go ahead and share it inside the chat or pop in a second life. And tell me all about it. Let's get back to this story. All right, I decided. What other choice did I have? I would continue and let the chronological chips fall where they may. I crossed Church Avenue, wondering what the consequences would be of allowing myself to be struck down by one of the passing cars. A screech of brakes and impact, the old gent flying to the pavement, most likely to his death. Who would gather up the body? Would my young self suffer the same fate when he reached 82? Enigma piled on enigma. Would it happen again? A nightmarish possibility. Anyway, I reached the curb safely, ignoring the angry shout of a motorist who just missed sideswiping me. In front of me was the Dutch Reformed Church. I remember playing basketball in its gym. A gym and a church, I thought, confused. With that, the charm of it all returned. No point in dark conjectures about the mystery of an 82-year-old man at bay in his own past. Enjoy yourself, I thought. And so I did. Strolling down Flatbush Avenue, I recalled, newly moved by the sight of each spot I remembered vividly, at least when I saw it again. Loft's candy. I used to buy a package the size of a pound of butter in which there was a thin layer of frozen strawberries, a thicker layer of vanilla ice cream. Enough for three, my sister, my mother, and me. Or four if my older brother Bob showed up. Five if his fiancée Mary accompanied him. God, I thought. Any of my kids, John, Arthur, Miriam, could have single-handedly devoured the entire package. Across the way was the high school Barbara Streisand had attended. First, I couldn't remember its name. Why not? I remembered Miss Okolungui's name. Then it came to me. Erasmus. He was what? A mathematician? A philosopher? Greek, probably? So what? I thought. Too many mixed up, meaningless recollections. Concentrate, I ordered myself. Which is when it occurred to me that Erasmus extended all the way to Bedford Avenue, a block away. How could that be? Did the past effect stretch that far? Had I merely been for some unknown reason a traveler back to an entire location? Was I in Brooklyn completely? If I took a BMT subway train downtown, would it all be there? God's sakes, came the stunning notion. I might get so enmeshed in the past that I could never get back to that damn window. Then what? An 82-year-old man from the year 2000 trapped in the year. What year was it? I took a chance, risky or not. I stopped an old lady who looked kind. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said. "I'm lost. Could you tell me where I am?" "Brooklyn, of course." Flatbush. Ah, and it's 1900. Her lips pursed. Now I'd irritate her. 41, she said, as though addressing an aggravating child. 41, I said. Yes, and if you're lost, you better tell a policeman. Yes, I said. Thank you so much. She gave me a look which seemed to be one of suspicious curiosity. I didn't want to intrude on her any longer, so I repeated my thanks and continued on down the sidewalk of 1941 Flatbush Avenue. I was pleased that I had, successfully it appeared, invaded the pass without repercussion. Of course, I had displeased that old lady. At the end of our brief exchange, she'd grown cautious. Why? I wondered. Was my 2009 outfit so different? Or was it simply that my queries had been peculiar, even suspect? I had to put that on out of my brain. It was getting cluttered there. I stared at Erasmus as I walked, remembering at that moment a few doors down from the Bedford Avenue side was the Jewish temple. I recalled the sound of their chanting through their open back doorway. And a few doors down from them, my aunt and uncle's house. Next to that, the two-story office building where they did cleaning, and where they took me one evening with my cousin Francis to look at the massive Axe pinball machines, the result of a local police attack. And on the first floor was the ice cream parlor where I bought Grob's ice cream cones. Too much. My brain was being consumed by unnecessary memories again. I had to control them. I had to. I washed them off with deliberate focus. I was on Flatbush Avenue. I'd keep myself and brain exclusively there. Enjoy the nostalgic sights, not let my brain go haywire with mobbing remembrances. Good. I would not dream of ringing the doorbell of my aunt and uncle's house, assuming, as I now did, that the house was actually there. What impossible complications would arise if they answered the door? A slough of incredible explanations consumed my brain. Yes, I know I'm 82, but I'm really 15. I'm your nephew, Richard. I'm here from the year 2009. I went out a window in a house on Church Avenue, and lo and behold, I'm in 1941. Strange, isn't it? And impossible, isn't it? I thought. Time traveling into one's past had to impose certain rules, certain limitations, one of which is don't try to think too much, don't try to contact anybody, just be an observer. All right, I got it. So down Flatbush Avenue I strolled, an observer in time. Only I went back to Lost Candy and smiled at the display of candy boxes in the window. Most of them were for Easter. It must have been April then. A weekday in April, judging from the movement of students in and out of Erasmus. The memory, I had to assume it was valid, that Miriam's three boys were also in school. 60, 80 years hence. 68 years hence, and that thought startled me. I blotted it out and continued my walk in memories. Before I left, I looked at my reflection in a loft window. Still old, still white-bearded. Next, the pancake restaurant, a visual delight. I smiled as I watched the narrow stream of butter pour down on the revolving griddle. Watched the circles of batter, all perfect in size, bubble as they moved onto the turning grill, then were flipped over as a spatula appeared magically to do so. And at the end of this wondrous spectacle, another spatula, even more miraculously, placed three pancakes on each waiting plate. I watched this for about 15 minutes, my face, I'm convinced, bathed with constant smile. Then it suddenly came to me that close by, nearly too close, was the stairway leading up to the second floor dress suit rental shop and the third floor apartment where I'd lived during much of my early high school years with my mother, sister, and brother. I say too close because it snatched back the adversity of time travel. If I went up those stairs and knocked on the door, would my mother open it? She might be working at a Binger's bakery, my sister at Abram and Strauss. What if I answered the door? Such an enigma was beyond calculation. He would stare at me, no doubt blankly. I'd be speechless, or worse, babble some sort of stupid remark. Sorry, son, I thought this was a tuxedo rental place. Utterly stupid. He possibly guessed that I was an aged version of him? How could he? In any event, the moment would be embarrassingly awkward, or worse, frighteningly revealing. Most likely horrifying to both of us, especially me. No, forget that possibility. Just keep walking. God forbid I should ever confront my younger self during this incredible wondering. No, I'd just walk on. Next block, Grants 5 and 10. Across the street I used to walk to school on. Was PS 119 still there? I didn't mean still, I meant new, now. No point in trying to reach it. What for? The long walk to it? At least three-quarters of a mile would surely catapult me back to 2009. Then what? Try climbing out that window again? Assuming it was even there. Surely it wouldn't work a second time. No, stay on Flatbush Avenue. Observe. Don't take any risks losing this remarkable experience. God forbid trying to buy a souvenir. That'd be a terrible mistake. Grants again. My aunt and cousin Vivian used to shop there during the day after Thanksgiving. or was it the day after Christmas? Couldn't remember which, taking advantage of what they called rummage sales, useless articles at cut rate prices. And the next block down was Woolworth's, another five and dime store, and across the avenue was a small grocery store where I recalled, during some kind of strike, buying a quart of milk for a nickel, and Petra's rye bread for 9 cents, and pumpernickel for 13 cents. Stop that, I told my crowding brain. Just look. Don't dwell on memories of food. Like a trio of cream-filled cupcakes for a dime. Like Dusky Dan's stone-hard caramel lollipops for... Stop, I ordered my losing control brain. Just stop. But I couldn't. Past recollections kept infusing my consciousness. Merkel's meat market across the avenue. A pound of bacon ends for 19 cents. How I loved the sandwiches my mother made from toasted wheat bread and fried bacon ends and mayonnaise. I devoured them for lunch in high school. If I ate one now at 82, the combination would nauseate me. But then, in the fruit and vegetable store at the corner, I literally visualized my customary purchase. A nickel's worth of soup greens, a full-size grocery bag loaded with carrots and onions and turnips, and Jesus Christ, cut it out, I begged my brain. Just look. But I couldn't control it. In the next block, the Lois Kings, where I saw the Marx Brothers in A Day at the Races. Further down, the Rialto Theater, where I saw Gone with the Wind and its later run. The Chinese restaurant, the bowling alley. Was there no end to this? Was that the peril of time travel? At least the time travel I was immersed in? I had to stop. Simply had to stop this endless discharge of pointless memories, this brainless gushing of trivia. But how? I stopped walking and pleaded with myself. Do something right, I begged. Then it occurred to me. Adeline. Of course, how I had missed it. If there was any reasonable point to all of this, it was Adeline, my first and only love. But where was she? Was it possible that she was, as I always remembered her, sitting on the porch of the Bedford Avenue apartment house? Directly across the avenue from the third floor apartment I lived in with my mother and sister, the third floor apartment where I stood at the window of my mother's bedroom, looking across the way, staring at Adeline. Why had I never had the courage to cross the avenue and speak to her? Why, when I was totally in love with her, remember I was 15 years old, there would be other females in my life, Jane on Long Island, Lucille in Brooklyn, Mary at college, Agnes in my life, but none compared to Adeline, my angel. I always thought of her that way. Once I stood right next to her in the delicatessen around the corner. Did I say hello? Say anything at all? I did not. I stood beside her in mute adoration, paralyzed by love. I had to speak to her now. I had to. Blindly, it was a marvel that I wasn't flattened on Flatbush Avenue, although I certainly evoked a number of outraged car horns and one clanging trolley car bell. I rushed up Albemarle Road. I had no idea whether Bedford Avenue was waiting for me. I never gave it a moment's consideration. I had to see Adeline. It was all that mattered to me, so I ran as fast as I could, which at 82 was limited velocity. More a hasty shuffle. I didn't think of it, however, didn't give a moment's thought to the possibility of a heart attack. I ignored my pacemaker pounding. Another stroke, perhaps? No thought of that. Only one thought filled my mind. One word. One name. I reached Bedford Avenue. It was there. I turned right and stared up the block. My gaze leaped hungrily across the way. There, two girls sitting on the porch steps of her apartment house. One of them was Adeline. I jarred to a halt, aware, for the first time I had been running, that I was panting for breath. I stared across the avenue. It was her, wasn't it? Yes, it had to be. Her hair, that golden wreath around her head, it was unmistakable. To me, anyway. The vision had been imprinted in my brain for 67 years. That brought me up short. I wasn't 15 anymore. I was an old man. No, that wasn't so. I looked up at the window of my mother's bedroom. I couldn't see from that angle. Without a thought, I crossed the avenue and looked up again. There I was at the window, gazing intently at Adeline. I drew in a shaking, almost gasping breath. And you imagine what it'd be like to see your own younger self, your actual younger self, and know what that younger self was thinking. And yet, I didn't know. I wasn't there, inside his head, his brain. I knew what he was thinking, but I wasn't inside his brain. Minor discrepancy, perhaps, but to me, all important. I had to act as what I was at this moment, 82-year-old Richard Swanson, determined to not only see the past up close, but to change it. I turned and walked closer to the porch where Adeline was sitting with her friend, the little Italian girl named, I couldn't remember her name, was it Louisa? I thought for a second that younger Richard might be watching me approach the porch. How could he miss it? Wouldn't he wonder who I was? Wouldn't it disturb him? Was I breaking one of the cardinal rules of time travel, making contact with the past? No, I told myself determinedly. It was a rule I'd come up with myself. No one had transmitted it to me, so to hell with it. To ruddy, bloody hell with it. I was here. With Adeline, I could change everything. I stopped in front of the porch and gazed at her, my angel. She was still that. Memory had not deceived. She was beautiful, incredibly beautiful. I love you, I thought. I've always loved you. They had seen me stop, now saw me staring. What you want, old man? The Italian girl demanded. That puts me in my place, I thought. Then occurring the most horrible event in the entire experience. The same tongue-tied inability to speak which had assailed me in the delicatessen that afternoon now took place again. I wanted desperately to tell her who I was, that my younger self was, at that very second, gazing at her through a window across the way, that he loved her now, and that I, the old man standing in front of her, had loved her always, that somehow she must speak to my younger self, get to know him, love him as he loves you, now, this year, and always. I couldn't say a word. Was it me, or was I prevented from speaking because I had, after all, broken that rule of time travel? How long I stood there, a mute statue called wordless love, I had no idea. It must have been long enough to disturb her, though. Why are you staring at me? She asked. Because I love you, damn it, yelled my brain, but my tongue, my voice, still paralyzed. Then Adeline said one thing I will always remember, always cherish. Are you all right? She asked, concerned, loving. I will never forget that. Forget that. Her words were disfigured in a moment by the Italian girl snapping, Get out of here, old man. We'll call a cop. That did it. The moment was lost. Without a word, completely unavailable to me anyway, I turned and walked away, cursing myself inwardly. For Christ's sake, go back and tell her what she has to hear. If you don't, that poor speechless sap in the window will never say boo, and all will be lost. As always, damn it, as bloody always. I don't remember how I got back to Flatbush Avenue, not a step of it. I know I must have passed the police station, the Edison store, not a glimmer of recollection. Only one thing I remembered, sitting on one of the steps to our old apartment, and seeing myself walk by. My immediate inclination was to shrink back in startled avoidance, not that much of the problem since he had already passed me by. How do I describe my feelings at that moment? There was a fascination, no doubt of that, but after discomfort, but also discomfort, even dismay. Why, think of it, you, 82, looking at your 15-year-old self walking by, moments of distress at the duplicate reality. Two of you, one 15, one 82. How could the confused sensation be allied? No way. I just had to accept the anomaly. Then it struck me. I had a choice. There were no hard, fast rules controlling time travel. I was free to act as I chose. I could alter anything at will. So I stood quickly and hurried after myself. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? It is crazy. The whole experience was crazy, with one exception. It happened. So there I was, my old self striding confidently, willfully at any rate, after my young self. Richard, I called, suddenly remembering that the gang at the Y called me Swanee. Would he respond to that nickname more readily? Probably not. He didn't turn, kept walking. I recognized his stride, smiling as I remembered how my mother described it as loose and wobbly. It was that. I called his name again. This time he heard me and stopped to look around. I approached him, and let me tell you about the uncanny encounter of standing inches from your own younger self. The feeling goes beyond description. It was, at once, thrilling and frightening. What is it? He asked, not too politely. Who was this old guy, and what did he want? I tried to start what I meant to say, suffering an abrupt dread that I was about to face the same dumbstruck inability to speak that I experienced in front of Adeline. I fought it off. I would not let it happen again. I began, then faltered, I want to help you. Is this some kind of charity? I felt a tremor of amusement. I'd always had a skeptical nature. I had to smile. The show of diversion didn't please him. He turned away. No, I don't. No, don't, I said abruptly. He turned back. Listen, sir, he said. The sir did not sound at all polite. I want to speak to you about Adeline, I said. Who? He sounded far more aggravated than curious. Mentally, I jumped back in my own time. Had this ever happened to me when I was 15? I was sure it hadn't. This was something else entirely. I was transcending time travel, which strengthened my resolve to say, the girl who lives across the street from you, the one you look at from the window from your mother's bedroom. There, I'd said it. Time was changed. My 15-year-old self looked at me with deep suspicion written on his face. He didn't speak. You have to speak to her, I told him. What are you, a detective or something? I, my dubious teenage self, replied. No, I said, amused again. He did react well to that amusement either. Listen, mister. No, I interrupted him. You listen. Adeline, how do you know her name? He demanded. He was really suspicious of me now. Was it all going wrong? I couldn't let it go wrong. So, mistakenly or not, I countered him. You don't know her name, do you? You don't know anything about her. Listen, mister, he started again. No, you listen, son. I broke in again. Of course, he wasn't my son. He was me. You have to speak to her. Stop staring out the window and go to her when she's sitting on her porch. Get to know her. Tell her you love her, that you want to spend the rest of your life with her. Don't make the mistake I did. You gotta, Mister, he cried, cutting me off. I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is you lived your life. Now let me live mine. He was right, of course. I knew it in an instant. I had no right to mess with his life. I knew that he would never speak to Adeline, would live his life without her. My attempted intervention was a waste of time. Would he even remember it? Doubtful. I watched him walk away from me, my young self leaving me behind, living his own life, as he had perfect right to do. And hampered by me, I tried in vain. Time travel? Bah. Humbug. Unless it taught me something. But what? Leave yesterday alone, maybe? No point in trying to change the past. It's gone. Only in memories, which are, face it, indelible, not subject to rewriting. I walked back to the house. It was still there. I rang the deafening bell, and the lady opened the front door. Somehow it was 2009 once more. I don't have to climb back through the window. I decided against renting that room, I told her. She didn't seem surprised. Thought you might, she said, and then shut the door. I walked back to Miriam's house. She returned from the market and was unloading groceries. Where you been, Dad? She asked. I kissed her on the cheek. Went for a walk, I told her. And that's the window of time, wrapping up Men's Mental Health Month with a quiet bang. Regret's a universal thing, but it hits guys hard when we're told to just move on. If you're carrying something heavy, reach out. Talking's the first step. U.S. folks, 988's there. Australia, Beyond Blues, 1300, 224, 636. Thanks for joining me on SL tonight. Drop your thoughts in the chat and let's keep supporting each other. And if you stick around, there's other videos to watch, and there will be a bonus story, as I felt like 4 stories was suitable for Men's Mental Health Month, but I wanted to wrap it up with a full on bonus story, and it's called The Third Policeman. And hopefully, it will be a hell of a time. So, goodbye and good luck.